Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. We are here to reconvene our Real Experiences, Real Relationships session that we had at a recent Mission in Motion event that was focused on industry HBCU engagement. It's so exciting to see my panelists again. I met them for the first time in person in Atlanta, and it's really a pleasure to be able to see them again here on the screen. I'm going to make a couple of quick introductions so that you know who these panelists are, but they will do a more full introduction of themselves, and then I will moderate the session with a few questions that I will pose. And then we'll see where the conversation takes us. So today we have with us Dr. David Marshall. He is the professor and chair of the Department of Strategic Communication in the School of Global Journalism and Communication at Morgan State University. Cheyenne-Boyce is the Strategic Partnerships Manager, Education Partner Program Strategic Partnerships Manager at HubSpot. And Jeffrey Moss, who is the founder and CEO of Parker Dewey. So let's start with Dave, if you would like to make a more full introduction of yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Really glad to be here, and thanks for the invitation, and good to see my colleagues again for part two of this discussion. Dave Marshall, professor and chair of strategic communication here at Morgan State. That's for students who are interested in going into public relations, advertising, marketing, social media. And my connection to this panel is that for our department, we are a very workplace ready, centered. Many of the ideas, concepts that you will hear during this discussion are embedded in our curriculum as opposed to a value added to the curriculum here as well. And this, I guess, philosophy of education is working pretty well for us. We are really proud to note that we are achieving just about a 94% job placement rate in the first 6 to 8 months outside of graduation.
Wow.
Thank you, Dave. Going to go to Cheyenne next. Would you like to make a more full introduction?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm really happy to be able to continue this conversation with the wonderful panelists we have joining today. Again, my name is Cheyenne-Boyce. I am our Strategic Partnerships Manager for HubSpot's Education Partner Program. However, I also am taking on a new role. I am in transition of becoming our Senior Program Manager for Student and Workforce Development Program. So currently, I wear a lot of hats at HubSpot, which means I get to do some really exciting work. For those who aren't familiar, HubSpot is a CRM marketing platform. So we provide software to businesses to help them grow their businesses and their customers. What my team does specifically is we manage all of HubSpot's education partnerships. And so the Education Partner Program, we partner with professors at colleges and universities and other educational institutions who are teaching marketing, sales, entrepreneurship, business, communications, fields that are all in the wheelhouse of HubSpot. And we provide those professors with HubSpot software that they're able to use in the classrooms. Our team is very much focused on applied learning and making sure that students really have the skills that are going to help them be most prepared for the workforce in whatever role they're interested in pursuing. So again, we provide that software as well as other educational resources. I do curriculum development as well. And currently we have about 1,900 professors in our program worldwide. We are a global program working with professors all around the world, which is really exciting. In my role, I specifically work with professors who are from HBCUs, so historically Black colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, community colleges, women's institutions, and then a few other traditionally minority serving institutions around the country. And so it really is just a great pleasure to be able to work with professors like Dr. Marshall and their faculty in order to help bring again, the HubSpot software and resources that we're able to offer into the classroom. I also am very excited to be able to work directly with students through our mentorship programs, our micro-internship program, which of course we'll be talking a bit more about today, and then just other workforce and career readiness programs as well. So again, excited to be a part of the conversation and to share a little bit more about my work as well.
Thank you so much, Cheyenne. And Jeffrey.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for doing this, Russ, and everyone else. True honor to be here. So I'm Jeffrey Moss. About 7 years ago, founded an organization called Parker Dewey. And what we did 7 years ago was really pioneer this concept of the micro-internship, not to replace summer internships or full-time roles, but really to help ensure companies were creating equitable pathways from college to career through short-term paid project-based experiences. And one of our beliefs that's really been proven true over the past 7 years is through those short-term experiences, college students from all backgrounds can not only get real experience and build real relationships and earn money, but they provide this great way to explore different career paths and find the right role. And it does so in a way that for companies, it lets them identify, engage, assess, and ultimately hire college students from all backgrounds. And one of the things that's also most exciting is, as David was talking about the program at Morgan State, is it complements what's taking place in the classroom. It's not a replacement for the 4-year, 2-year post-secondary institution, but it's very much around amplification of what's being taught in the classroom through the benefits of experiential learning. So really excited to be here.
Thank you all. And you know, I forgot to introduce myself, so I'll do that right now before I ask the first question. I'm Russ Lyons, but I go by Russ. I work at Novartis, and I run the Biomedical Education and Innovation programs at Novartis. Novartis is a pharmaceutical company, and I work in the research division of Novartis. So we offer programs all the way from middle and high school students to come directly into a teaching lab and work side by side with scientists to undergraduate and graduate level programs and a postdoctoral program. Our programs have always been quite focused on providing equitable opportunities, especially to students who are often underrepresented in the life sciences. So this has been a keen interest of ours for many years, and was really excited to learn about micro-internships and to see how they might play in our industry and support some of the work that we do here at Novartis. So that's me, and now I'm going to start with the first question, and this is a general question for everybody, and I know this will result in a lot of conversation, so I'll kick it off with what makes any experience or an experience real for the student? And I also want to think about the employer and the mentor, what's going on in that side of the equation, and at an organizational level. So I'll kick that out to all of you. Who would like to tackle that first? I'm going to go with Jeff.
Oh, okay. I'm happy to. I was trying to keep my mouth shut for a change. No, I think it's a matter. I think it's a matter of the experience being authentic. I think there's a lot of discussion around the importance of real, authentic experiences, not made-up case studies, not make-believe assignments. I think all of those things can be useful teaching tools, but what we're hearing from students time and time and time again is they want to know what it's really like to work at a company. They want to really understand what the skills are that they're learning in the classroom and how they apply to the real world. So I might be a philosophy major or a journalism major. I'm not necessarily thinking about taking a role as a journalist or not thinking about a role as a philosopher. I don't think even Google has that job title. They want to understand how those research, problem solving, communication skills tie into the real world for when they're pursuing the quote unquote right full-time role upon graduation. The other thing that's important is at least we found with the micro-internships, is they create a catalyst for creating real authentic relationships between the student or learner and a professional. That I may have graduated Morgan State, and I see that David is also an alumni of Morgan, and I reach out to him, and there's no catalyst for conversation other than let's talk about a certain professor or an event on campus. What we found is when there's these real projects, these real experiences that students are working on, they can start to build that relationship. Because I'm reaching out to David as an alum of a school and saying, hey, I'm doing an analysis for McGraw-Hill on trends with online education. I know you're an expert in this. Can I pick your brain? Can I get your insights? So again, it's using these real projects as a catalyst to build the relationships, whether it's with alumni or faculty members or prospective employers.
And maybe I'll build on that a little and then ask Cheyenne to chime in and David as well. I think what we also see with students is not just that the experience is real, that's of course, they want to do a real project, but it's a project that's meaningful to the work that's being done in that organization, that I'm actually creating value for the organization in some way. I think that we've seen that time and time again from students that we have, that they want to know that they've contributed. Cheyenne.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely agree. Being able to really see that value reflected, I think for a student is super meaningful. For me, in my work at HubSpot, one of the things that I found is that time is a very important factor in developing these relationships and building pipelines and really creating partnerships that are mutually beneficial. I think that's something to always be aware of as well. It should be beneficial for the industry partner, the university, the student. Everybody should be gaining something through this experience. And so, like I said, because I work with our strategic partner institutions, I've also found that each of these relationships, whether it's a HBCU, a community college, or an HSI, they all require a different nuanced approach. And so it's important for me to really be aware of what are the root causes of any friction that is happening, what are students really looking for, what are professors looking for, so that our team is able to actually address that again in a way that's going to be meaningful. So we don't have a one size fits all approach to the different professors that we work with. We provide all of the same tools and the same benefits to our partners, but it's really up to them to determine how do they want to, apply these different resources in their actual classroom. And then I think, also for our team, we do have obviously a great partnership with Morgan State University. We've been working with Dr. Marshall for a while. What's been great about that relationship is that we work with the different professors in their department and really get to meet and I work with and talk to them and understand what they're looking for. And then another example is we do have a very strong relationship with Howard University as well in Washington, D.C. HubSpot was able to sponsor a center for digital business that we're developing in their business school, which is really exciting. But before we announced that partnership, there had been years of work that we were doing to incrementally build up to the point where HubSpot was able to make that investment in their business school in a way that again was going to be mutually beneficial. And so before we got to the point of investing in a center, we were again had professors from Howard who were in our education partner program, and we were helping to support classroom activities, and we were building out classes with them. So co-sponsored courses. We, obviously were participating in career fairs and various campus events and posting competitions and all of those other things. So I think that, it takes time to build a great relationship, just like with anything else. And so, I think at least our approach as an industry partner is to make sure that we're being cognizant of the value that comes when you actually listen and try to meet the key needs that a partner has. So.
And one thing to jump in, one thing that I love hearing about this, and sorry, David, if you're going to hit this, is that this is authentic, Cheyenne. This is not check the box, let us just write a check and so we can hang the banner. Everything you're talking about is authentic, and it's about building real relationships with students and faculty.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to add is that from a student perspective and, dealing with them every day, it is the authenticity of that, and the pipeline that the experience is going to lead to something. I think part of the challenge we have sometimes with these types of either internship experience or work experience, it's a episodic experience, but that's it. It just, you have the thing and then you're done. I dare say you go and ask many employers who've had an intern to say, what happened to your intern from summer of 2025? And they couldn't tell you. And that really is the outcome of a successful internship or experiential learning thing. That as a result, it's not just the internship or the work placementship. It's the, as a result of this, here is what happened to that student. And I think that's what students are looking for: direct pipeline to get them from university to university to the place of employment. But something that Russ also said as well, our partners are telling us that the experience is much more meaningful if students are involved on helping the company do what it's there to do. It's not a church, it's not a synagogue, it's not the community center, it's not a Y. They're solving legitimate business problems for the world, and everybody at the organization's job is charged with making sure the mission of the organization is successful. And the closer we can get students to that work, to give them a little small piece, not anything that's going to collapse the organization, right? But a little tiny piece of something that they can also show that they're adding business value to the company, its mission, moving it forward. I think students really appreciate that because they see themselves in the larger scope of what the business is doing. But certainly for the C-suite, these programs become important because they see either young executives in training or helping to get the team to its goal, or that type of thing as well. And I think that really does make the experience very real and meaningful for both the partners and also for the students as well.
Well, there's a company we work with called Xylem. It's a water technology company. I had never heard of it before, even though it's a Fortune 500 company. And one of the things they talked about is college students talk about, or many college students talk about their interest in the environment and social good. And David, to your point, I think this goes back to something Russ was saying also, when students are working on real projects for Xylem through their program, they are seeing how their real work is positively impacting the environment. And they may not have realized that they could be doing a marketing role for a Fortune 500 company and have such positive social good. How do you give them that exposure to it, plus also showing them that it's a real adding value, et cetera?
And I think these are really excellent points also. And I think companies have maybe over the last decade or so evolved their thinking from internships as a charitable kind of thing to do to help students to students at various stages of their educational journey have value to add to a company. So it's not just a charity that we're doing. We're actually hoping to get benefit from the students working with us, from them developing a relationship with some of our whether it's faculty or employees at the company, that we keep track of them and know how their career is progressing. Maybe they come back to a full-time position. So I think it's things are changing in the way companies see internships and the need for early talent, bringing new ideas to the way we do our business. Okay, well, that was a great kickoff. David, I'm going to ask you specifically, and of course, Cheyenne and Jeffrey, you can chime in as you wish. As an educator, are students looking for something in particular from an internship? And I know we've talked about what they hope to add, but are there any other things that you can think of or share about what students are really interested in getting out of an internship?
So of course, there's the value pieces of being able to walk away with some tangible skills and experiences that they can take to move them on to an employment. So I think that's a real tangible there as well. But beyond, and then the actual experience of just going through the process and doing some things, really the reality is, and there may be some university types who will not like what I'm about to say. So hope we can be friends after, but really we're hearing these criticisms not just from left-leaning or right-leaning or left-leaning legislatures, but for state publicly funded institutions. There is this thing that people are feeling that there's a disconnect between what's being taught in classes and how what's being taught is helping to move the state along, the region along, the economy along, and that students are maybe not coming out with the types of skills that are needed to help move economies forward. So I think there is a sense that from some of our students, they appreciate all that we're doing here at Morgan, but the reality is, unless I am sitting in a Google what do you call those, cubicle every day, working on some new software, right? I'm not doing the job every day. And that doesn't mean to say that as a university professor, I'm not adding value, but people who are solving problems every day, real time, with the newest thing that came out at 9 o'clock today, are actually in industry. And I think students want to have a sense of that piece as well. And the final thing I would say, in addition to the tangible skills, getting the real world experience, I think is a sense of belonging. I think students do want to feel that they are part of the company's culture, that they're not an appendage, that they are, as Jeff is saying, they're there to help the company help save the environment or do these types of things as well. And I think it's probably the biggest area of weakness that I think companies could improve upon, is helping to build a culture where young people are seen as value added and not just kind of a bother or tick in the box that we have to do because we have this internship program. And I think, as the expression goes, university students are not smaller adults. They're young adults who want to feel empowered, sense of belonging, and they do want to contribute. And I think that that's probably the three things that they're mostly looking for.
Jeff or
I was just gonna-
Cheyenne?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and add that sense of belonging, I think, is, so crucial. I am lucky to have been able to work with a number of students who have interned at HubSpot as a mentor for them. And then I also have students who are part of our own mentorship program that I facilitate sessions for. And I've had so many of them, tell me that, oh, I had an internship at previous company and the work was fine and I did it and it was great, but really what I loved about my internship here is that the work was directly adding value to whatever their manager was working on, and then they also had a strong sense of belonging with the other interns that are in the company, but then also within our team holistically. So I'm going to have an intern working with me this summer. I already have it set that he'll be in all of our team meetings, and his projects have been created with the outcomes of other teams and our larger team in mind, so that he can see those direct connections to his work. And I'm very open to him, having coffee chats and doing, talking to folks throughout the company, so that he's creating an experience for himself that, is going to be really valuable. So again, I just really wanted to share that I really, super plus one to that idea of creating belonging for interns and making it an experience that is meaningful and valuable and has all the nuances that I think we would even be looking for in any type of new experience we would potentially be taking on. So the same way that I look for opportunities in side projects, I also try to give that to the students that I'm working with as well.
Yeah, the sense of belonging kind of links in my mind to the value that we place on mentorship, at least. And I've heard that word used here quite a bit already. The programs that we run at Novartis for interns, we always think about the mentoring aspect of it. We actually provide mentor training. Not everybody is a great mentor, or you're not born being a mentor necessarily. So there is some training that we think is important. And that's often the feedback we get from our interns, is the value that we placed on the mentoring component was as important as the technical skills, because they really felt like they became part of the company. They were introduced to people at all levels of the company, the most senior people. So I think that's they go hand in hand, the belonging and really having a good mentorship mindset, I guess. This is for Cheyenne. Cheyenne, I know that you've mentioned you've worked with Parker Dewey on many micro-internships, and maybe you could provide a little more insight on how those internships went, what the benefits were to the company, and what experiences you could share from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, our team, we love the micro-internship program. It's been a really great way. And I'll talk about, what it's meant for me personally with working with a micro-intern. But first, I think overall, our whole program's mission is to help millions of students grow better. So prior to being able to develop the micro-internship program, we were providing this educational content and these software tools, but there were still gaps in where we were able to facilitate opportunities that would allow students to really practice skills that would increase their employability. And so that was a gap that we were trying to fill. We knew that you can't just tell students, okay, this is the software, this is what you should do, and then not point them in a direction that would, help them achieve what they're ultimately looking to achieve, which is to start their career, begin their career journey. So I think for the company overall, that was the micro-internships have been a really great opportunity for that. As an educational partnership program, for us specifically, the direct benefit to our program is that we've been able to create this holistic full circle approach. And it means that we're really getting students engaged, not just in HubSpot within our company, but also within our ecosystem. So we have hundreds of thousands of partners and agency partners and solutions partners and customers all around the world. And so we are able to really improve the hiring effectiveness for those folks, because if they hire a micro intern, then they're getting to know the student is getting to know their company, understand the ins and outs of what it looks like to be at a HubSpot customer or a HubSpot agency partner organization. And, then the student, we're also increasing really some of our enhancing the diversity at these organizations, because our program is pulling in students from, again, our strategic partner institutions and other institutions as well that we have really strong relationships with. So there's that diversity component, but then also just ultimately making everyone just a little bit happier because the student is having this experience of being able to work on a project that is meaningful, as we've been talking about, that is authentic, that is bringing value to the company. And then the student is also doing work that oftentimes the organization that's hiring often doesn't have time to do. And so they're getting that work done. The student is getting the experience. They're, getting paid for this experience, and, everybody can just be a little bit happier. So that, I think, is really the overall benefit to the program. I have worked with a micro intern specifically. Russ, I also think that the same micro intern I had might be working with you now. So that's
awesome. I'm so excited.
Yes. When I heard that, I was like, well, this is just amazing. So yes, I did work with a micro intern so it would have been like half of March and into early April. I needed help with a research project. Like I said, I wear a lot of hats right now. I'm doing a lot of strategy around our programming, but I also needed some support with really looking at different HBCUs that our program could provide support to. So I wanted to know what institutions are opening new centers, or who has entrepreneurship and innovation centers on campus, who's hiring new faculty in their marketing departments. That was some of the research that I was looking for that I unfortunately just did not have time to do on my own. However, I ended up getting a great micro intern from Howard who happened to be a political science major. So it wasn't that she was necessarily, super interested in marketing and HubSpot. It was that she really enjoys doing research and really wants to be able to increase her experience in that space as she gets ready to apply for law school. And so it was a perfect match. She was able to look through the projects that we had offered. She picked mine, and it was wonderful. She presented this great research kind of document. She put all of her findings together, sent them to me. I was able to send them to our team. So now our acquisition manager is using that research. My manager is able to cite that research. And it was really, like I said, just an overall value to our whole team. So I don't know if you all can tell that I'm getting excited just talking about it, but it was just a really awesome project. And I was glad that I was able to do it, to take on a micro intern myself, because HubSpot, our team, we subsidize the micro internships for our customers who do decide to take on a student. And it was great for me to be able to just kind of give them additional insight into the process and tell them this is what it looks like to create a project. You think it might take a ton of time for you to do it, but it really won't. All I did was I put together one slide deck. We had a check-in meeting that was a half hour, and we had a final midway check-in meeting, and we had a final check-in meeting that was a half hour. So it took me about 3-4 hours of my time to put this together, whereas she did 20 hours worth of work that was beneficial for me, and then also was able to get paid for it. So, I mean, the model itself, I think, really lends itself well to, again, helping students get this practical experience that's going to benefit their employability, and then also for organizations being able to work with students in a maybe non-traditional way, but also getting to know them and getting work done that, that supports the learning that a student is trying to do. So it was a great experience for me overall. I'm happy to answer any other questions that folks have about it.
And I do see some questions coming in specifically about micro-internships, and we will get to that. I wanted to just add to a little bit to what Cheyenne has been saying. When I first learned about micro-internships from Jeff, I said, this will never work at my company because we do research in the lab. How could a micro-internship, and especially something remote, really be of value? But after many conversations with Jeffrey, he convinced me that there were ways for us to think differently and consider micro-intern. Which we did, and we're so excited that our micro-intern is doing research again on HBCUs, but with a different, we have a different objective. We want to know which HBCUs have really strong science programs where we can recruit interns and graduate students, let's say, or scientists. And I think the other thing that I would say, and Jeffrey, you can chime in on this, you're the expert on Parker Dewey, and micro-internships, it is so easy to do. And I did not need to get any kind of approval. I mean, the financial burden is minimal. You're paying for a few hours, 20 maybe hours over the span of the micro-internship. When my boss found out that I was doing this, and I think she had a few words with Jeffrey, she said, well, now we need to expand this to the rest of our research institution, because we do have a lot of business functions that could gain value from this type of micro-internship, and they don't need to be in the lab. So we of course have lots of areas where this could be beneficial. So again, I started as the pilot and have had such a great experience that we're now going to see how we can create projects in lots of different areas within our research institute that could take advantage of this really novel, I think, way of bringing experiences to students that might not otherwise get that kind of real world experience at different companies.
And on the utility side of that, here at Morgan, for example, if I'm teaching a class and one of the outcomes of the class is to solve a real world social media problem or marketing problem in the class, that's an outcome for the class. Let's not go to the library and write a white paper about what you read about something. It literally means if you're going to pass this class, you have to demonstrate you've solved a problem. So the student goes and gets a 6-hour, 15-hour micro-internship with Parker Dewey or something that they can do in a community organization, and actually brings back the evidence that they have solved the problem. That's a value to us. It helps us meet our educational goals, but the student actually literally can say, I just didn't take Dave Marshall's dumb class or the dumb class that was offered by, as a result of this class, I solved 3 problems. And sometimes they could do multiple of these during a single, during a single semester. And then you add on to that these other types of credentialing experiences that HubSpot offers our students. We often hear many times as they walk into job interviews that they have as many or more certifications in very key areas that they're seeing on their LinkedIn and their current employees of the organization. So again, the utility side for the student, in addition to the dollars that it may put into their pocket, the experience there, they also can get class credit for it. And so it just becomes a win. It just becomes a win, and people are saying, why are you not doing this? And with all due respect to the library, why are you in the library, man? You got to get a micro-internship. That's what they're saying on my campus.
Jeff, since we've had quite a few questions about micro-internships, maybe you could spend a little bit of time describing this concept a little bit more and even getting into the weeds a little bit with how it works.
Sure. And by the way, I'm for anyone that's heard me present before, I don't think you've ever heard me silent for so long. I'm speechless. I mean, just hearing the 3 of you describe your experiences, it just, I don't know, I have chills. So thank you. So when we talk about micro-internships, first of all, I mean, I'll talk about them from Parker Dewey's perspective, since we pioneered it and facilitate them. But a lot of what we're describing can be done irrespective of us. We like to think we make it much easier to get it done. But again, just want that disclosure. We define micro-internships, short-term paid professional projects. Short-term meaning typically take the student 10 to 40 hours to complete, do a few days to a few weeks out. So these are not 10-week summer-long experiences or co-ops. These are meant to be projects that busy professionals have on their plate. Something that Cheyenne is trying to get done that would take her 20 hours to get done, but she just doesn't have enough hours in a day. We should go do this, but I don't have time. Or something that may not be the best use of her time. Again, she could go do that research on the different programs, but is that the best use of time for Cheyenne? Probably not. Well, guess what? For highly motivated college students, that is a great use of time and great way to get experience and learn about HubSpot and learn about various roles and demonstrate those core skills they're learning in the classroom, irrespective of major. So again, our goal, to one of the earlier questions, is that for the busy professional, the hiring manager, again, just any busy professional, these micro-internships should take you under 5 minutes to set up. And maybe you're investing an hour or 2 over the course of the entire experience. And that's really just interacting with the student, giving feedback. But the goal is that it makes your life easier and saves you time, as opposed to adding to your workload. The second thing I want to clarify is that micro-internships are not replacements, again, for the summer internship or co-op program. One of the college students had this metaphor that I felt a little creepy about as a 40-year-old married guy. It's actually a really good metaphor, which is, think about them like going on a date. That the traditional campus recruiting process, students and companies are jumping right into the engagement of the summer internship or co-op, or the marriage of the full-time role, without ever having this opportunity to date before, without having the opportunity as a college student to say, oh, I never thought about a role at Novartis. I never thought about the pharma industry, or I'm not a scientist, so I wasn't thinking about it. But gosh, Novartis has a great marketing or research or communications or HR project. Gosh, I want to go do that. What a great opportunity. And in the same way, a company might say, we're only recruiting from certain schools or majors or GPAs. How do you break down that barrier? Well, part of what we found is by using these short-term projects, it lets the hiring manager that's never hired anyone from Morgan State before, or never hired a communication major, see firsthand that, gosh, this communications major is amazing. He or she has great research, communication, problem-solving skills. I thought I needed a marketing major or finance major for this job, but gosh, the person who's the communications major from Morgan State is perfect. That's all we're trying to do, is create this pathway. And one of the things that Parker Dewey, I think, has done very well is we've removed that point of friction. Back to the comment I think, Russ, you made before, when students are doing micro-internships through Parker Dewey, they're not employees or contractors of Novartis or HubSpot or Northrop Grumman or Pepsi or any of the other companies. They're actually employees or contractors of Parker Dewey. They're on our books. So we handle the payroll and W-2 and 1099 and accounting. The other thing which means that from a company's perspective, it can be as simple as a credit card swipe, because again, they're not your employees. The other thing that's important is, as a mission-driven organization, if Cheyenne decides that the micro intern she worked with is perfect for a summer internship or full-time role, and there's that love connection, great, go ahead and hire. You don't owe Parker Dewey money. We're not a staffing firm. So again, part of what we're trying to do is create those dates, if you will, and make it easy to date, with the hope that it will lead to that engagement of the internship and the marriage of the full-time role. And fortunately, with 7 years of experience, the data shows it works. The data shows companies are lowering their cost per hire 40 to 80%. The data shows they're improving their diversity, with over 80% of micro interns coming from underrepresented populations. The data shows it's leading to higher conversion and retention rates. So again, sorry for the ramble, Russ.
No, that was fine. And I think, you know, some of the questions have been around the practicality, I guess, if you will, of micro internships and how it works. So that was great information that you provided. And I would also add, I said Parker Dewey makes it really simple. And we have firsthand experience with that, because we kept moving our timeline, and there was no issue with Parker Dewey. It was like, okay, we'll just shift this out a week. We'll shift it out a week, because we obviously couldn't get our act together.
But that's the goal, is the whole goal here is, and this goes back to something I think, David, you were hitting on, everyone gets value. Everyone gets utility. That for the busy professional at Novartis, at HubSpot, at any other company, this makes my life easier. I can get help on a project I don't have time for. For a recruiting team, what a great way to build a pipeline, whether it's around early access, how do I get to know freshmen or sophomores? Whether it's around diversity, we've never recruited at Morgan before, but now we want to start to build that relationship. They get value. Students get value, real value. They get paid for their work, real experiences, real relationships, career exploration, and then the universities get value. Because one of the great things is all of the feedback when the students are working on these projects goes back to Morgan State, goes back to David. So he can see all of those insights around the student performance and see the insights about, gosh, this company has never recruited here before, but they worked with 5 of our students as micro interns. Maybe we should be deepening the relationship with them. So again, everyone gets value, and we've removed the friction from it.
Great. Well, I'm sensitive to how much time we have remaining, and I want to ask one remaining question, and then maybe we'll take some of the questions that we've seen in the chat. So if we can take maybe just 5 minutes to answer this or provide some insight. Is there any specific advice that you would offer companies or HBCUs who might be interested in micro internships? Maybe David, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think, again, the university is a very particular beast, and nothing happens without the cooperation of faculty members in the classroom. So that's your first start. You notice Cheyenne didn't say, I'm working with the deans and I'm working with the vice president. She's working, their magic is they're working with faculty members who are walking into classrooms. So that's the first thing, I think, finding good partners, a representative, a champion at a school that's going to, who's actually teaching something there, because that's the where you have the most attention and the most influence there as well. I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I could give to anybody who's interested. And also being sensitive to the need. This is a partnership, that it's not all talking about what it is that you need, what your students need, what the university needs. You really should have a listening ear to figure out how what it is that you are doing can also be of a benefit to the company and its mission, vision, and values.
Thank you. Cheyenne.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely agree with Dr. Marshall's thoughts as well. I would add, so in the part about working directly with faculty, one of the things that our program has found also, in terms of the number of students who we have completing micro-internships from the highest number of universities. So for example, we have like 4 students from Florida International University who have done multiple micro-internships. And so they're starting to create a pattern of, working on these different projects. One of the things that we also notice about those types of institutions is that they're using other credentials. So HubSpot credentialing in their classrooms, they have other experiential learning experiences going on. And so I would say that micro internships are one piece from an education perspective. They're one piece of what will help develop a student holistically. And so our team is also aware of that. And we're creating other opportunities that are going to support students from our perspective as well. So it's not about, I think, just finding like one item that will be the catch-all solution for everything. It really is about testing out what will work at different institutions. Some institutions are great. We work with are great with doing the micro internships. Some are more, we're just trying to get them working on HubSpot credentials and things like that. So like I mentioned earlier, I think at the top of the conversation, there's a lot of nuance to figuring out what'll be the best approach. For industry partners who are, maybe interested in starting a micro internship program, I would say just start. Like our team has learned a lot over the last year in terms of how, we promote the program, what students we have in the program, how we work with Parker Dewey and all of these different things. I think that we have developed and are starting to perfect the program over time by working with students and working with customers and having them participate. And so even though it can sometimes seem like a lot to take on to develop this type of program, it really kind of figures itself out along the way. And then you start to see the benefit and you see, I have the students who, have done a micro internship and now they're in my mentorship program. And now they're also in the, hiring process at HubSpot. And so you start to see it come full circle, but you won't if you don't start. And so that I think was one of our team's big takeaways. And then finally, of course, if there are any educators out there who are interested in learning more about HubSpot and our education partner program, we are a free program for faculty. And so I'm happy to connect with anyone who may be interested in becoming a part of the program and learning how we distribute the educational resources that we have as well. So that's just my overall advice.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Jeff, final advice?
Yeah, first of all, I need to give a shout out to Cheyenne and the HubSpot program. I mean, again, with all of the noise around, let's replace college, I think where we started the conversation, let's replace it, and should kids go to college anymore? Shouldn't they just do like the reality is the core skills developed in college are vital, not just for that first job, but for one's entire career. And what I love about the HubSpot sort of program, irrespective of the micro internships, is that it's collaboration with college. It's not replacing school. It's not taking away academic freedom, but simply providing more ways for universities and faculty to give students real professional experiences and insights and project-based learning in the classroom, et cetera, et cetera. So I just need to give a shout out to Cheyenne and HubSpot on that. As far as advice, my advice is don't overthink it. And I mean that sincerely. And Russ, I think about something you said, like every professional has we should and I should in projects. Every one of us. Just go post it. Go post the micro internship. They're on average, I think it's like $300 or $400, of which 90% goes into the student's pocket. So you're not paying $300 or $400 that's going into like some big corporate. It's going into the student's pocket. So go post your project. Think about something you're trying to get done, an article you're trying to get written, research you need done. You're going to a conference, you need help crunching a list. Just go post the project and see if it's as easy as all of us have said. Because again, the beauty of it is you don't need HR to bless it because they're not employees. Again, we love working with HR. It's simple. And if you're an HR team, post a project or go to your hiring managers and say, hey, tell me about something you don't have time for. Again, don't overthink it. It's so easy. And then if you want to do something that's more programmatic, again, fortunately, we've been doing this long enough. I think there's folks from Northrop Grumman on the call. We, by the way, don't disclose client names unless they talk about it. Northrop Grumman has very publicly talked about how they're using micro-internships tied to their work with the Greater Washington Partnership to build relationships and provide more opportunities with students. And one of the things they found is as hiring managers saw value in these projects and continue to have demand, let's expand it. Let's expand it now to students from HBCUs. Let's expand it to students from large colleges. And that's one of the things that's so exciting is, as an HR leader, how often can you go to a hiring manager and say, I got a gift for you. I have something that's going to make your life easier. So again, just do it. And then as the colleges and universities, it's the same advice. I mean, we have partnerships with over 500 colleges and universities across the US. But one of the things that's wonderful is since day one, we've been an open platform. So even if we don't have a formal relationship with the college or university, we still welcome their students with open arms. And when colleges or universities come to us, we give them all of the data. We give them all of the support. We don't charge them anything. Again, back to the fact that we're mission driven.
Thank you. Panelists, I think we have some time to maybe address some of the questions that have come into the chat. I don't know where you'd like to start. I'm going to start with one that came in very early because it relates to biomedical research. How can more programs open up to undergraduates? One program my son applied to for biomedical research had 300 applicants for 25 spaces. Kids need to win the lottery to get work experience or be from a hugely wealthy family where one parent knows the CEO or has given huge funds to a medical research hospital. And I believe you're speaking about those longer-term internships, which are more limited. Companies have, only so many slots and so much funds that they will normally dedicate to those types of research experiences. But I would say, why not start thinking about having your son look at these micro-internships to get a feel for different research institutes and develop a relationship maybe with a scientist or another professional at that research institute that maybe positions them for the next summer to be top of the list in that more limited collection or applicant pool. I think that might actually be part of building that network that we know is so important in our industry, but most likely in every other industry, to keep your name front of mind when the applications open up again. I don't know if somebody else has anything to say specifically about the biomedical research area. I know our program receives hundreds of applications for our summer internship program, and we only have 30 positions. So it is a challenge.
But here's the beauty of what Novartis is doing, which is you're essentially, through the micro-internship program, you're providing more of those opportunities. You're allowing more students to get their foot in the door and experience Novartis. Now, you might still only have 25 summer, or whatever the number is, summer internships, but that's okay, because what you've done through the micro-internships is at the top of the funnel is you provide more access for you to understand and evaluate and assess and build relationships with potential candidates, but you also provide opportunities for candidates to self-select out. The student who thinks he or she wants to do biomedical research and does a 10 or 20-hour project and realizes it's not the right fit, well, gosh, it's better for the student and better for Novartis to figure that out before committing to that 10-week summer internship. So again, that's where we're seeing a lot of excitement right now.
And I would say the micro intern we have is not a science major and has no intention of going into a biomedical research field. But she let her know that her younger sister is quite interested in science and we need to keep our eye on her. And so, we already have like this relationship that's going on. So, funny things can happen even in a short-term internship through this program. So I would say take advantage of it. It's not hard to do. And it may open many more avenues for students and for the company. Another question that we got early on, and I'm going to throw this out to Cheyenne and Jeff, as it's about companies. Well, our students today want to be a part of the greater mission. I find companies are, quote, set in their ways. Unfortunately, they are resistant to hearing feedback from current employees, let alone an intern. How would you advise a student to feel empowered to give feedback in an environment where feedback might not be welcome?
Yeah, let me see. It's tough. It is tough. From the student perspective, what I would say, so if I were to put myself in the student shoes, what I have learned, at least in my career journey in spaces where I've not been able, felt empowered to give feedback, is to put it into my work. So whatever my project is, whatever it is that I was supposed to be working on, being able to just make sure that like the essence of, my thoughts, my belief, whatever it is that I'm trying to get across or what I think could be beneficial to that company is included in that work. Whether it's, an aside in my final presentation or, it's a side coffee chat conversation that I'm having with somebody else. I think being very creative about how you kind of get that information, to anyone who is a listening ear is important for students. I think the challenge for me with this question is I put a lot more of the onus on the company, I think, to create those opportunities for students. And so I get that sometimes it can be challenging if you don't have a lot of leadership support. I recognize that I am very lucky in having a lot of, support from leadership to do the programs that I work on. But yeah, I really think it's up to me to be able to recognize that the student is ultimately going to benefit from that experience long beyond after they're done working with me. So, yes, I want the work that I need them to do to get done, but I also want them to be able to make their own connections and talk to people in the company and participate in other events and things with some of our employee resource groups, for example, where they can talk about what it is that whatever that feedback is that they have either for their work or for the company as itself. So for students, I think you just have to be very creative. For companies, though, I think that it's crucial to be able to create those good feedback loops for students. Because if it isn't, then the project likely isn't as valuable or mutually beneficial as it could be. So
I think Cheyenne, you hit on an important point that it's, this is more on the company side and support from leadership and having a culture that accepts feedback, insists on feedback. And if your company isn't there, it can be a struggle even for the employees, as you said. I think then bringing an intern into that type of environment puts a lot more responsibility on the mentor or the manager to create that sense of belonging, to create that sense of safety, so that they can engage a little bit more easily. But it won't be, a cakewalk if you don't have a culture that accepts that. And that's a huge undertaking.
And let me add just one thing particular when it comes, especially because I'm coming from an HBCU in the DE&I space, we see this quite a bit. This is not a ding, but it is a reality I think needs to be said. Companies are saying that they want to create these spaces that embrace DE&I, and so they create the positions, but they do nothing with them, or very little, I should say, in the company's culture to support the Black and brown students who might get there when they're there to make them feel welcome. So having the job without the support is the same thing as not having the job, because you're not going to do the ultimate goal of getting the student educated, exposed, and moving them along the pipeline. Why would they want to work in our industry overall and for a particular company where they don't feel empowered? And I think that's a missed opportunity. And it is, Cheyenne, as you're saying, a responsibility of people in the C-suite to build that culture.
One thing I'll add, because I know we're about to hit the top of the hour. One thing I'll add, actually two things. First of all, to the specific question, I think so much of it is situational. And part of what we would suggest is if an intern feels that way, what a great opportunity to reach out to an alum from your school. as a potential mentor or a faculty member to get their advice on how to deal with it. Now again, it's another catalyst for that conversation. The second thing, to David's last point, we've been seeing some really interesting usage of micro-internships to engage the employee resource groups in the campus recruiting in a way that goes beyond, hey, please show up to a panel so we have someone that looks like you, or please show up to a campus presentation. I'll drop a link. That's so key.
Well, I think we are at nearly the top of the hour, and so I'm going to say thank you to our panelists. It was again such a wonderful conversation and a pleasure to see you all, even virtually again. Hope we get to meet in person again and continue this type of a conversation and really build on it. Again, my pleasure to moderate today. Wish you all a great weekend.